In the wake of last Sunday's show for the next paradigm shift over at Blog Talk Radio, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who really resonated with the content of that show. So I've decided to kind of recap that for YouTube because it kind of goes more in depth to the alien connection to human history and the human future. And a lot of people are having various interactions with ETs, if you will, either astrally or personally. People are remembering past lives and realizing that they were born here in this life with some kind of a plan that is now becoming apparent to them. And there seems to be a real tidal wave of people that are awakening to some sort of preordained mission to accomplish during this particular phase of human development. So some of the things that I'd like to present here for YouTube is some things that I've learned about my particular history, because it surprises me probably as much as anybody else, that I believe it is probably even a bigger surprise to some people who've known me for a long time. But it wouldn't surprise anybody that's known me lately. I have met a new friend who is actually quite a gifted channeler, who had the unique experience of being taken and shown past lives and reminded of who he was before he incarnated here in this life. This man was born an open channel, basically in an ascended form already in terms of his ability to feel the energetics of the cosmic environment, the environment of the earth, and the radio frequencies of the thoughts, intentions, and emotions of the people around him. This has been a curse and a blessing, and his cross to bear. But the reason or the advantage for having these kinds of abilities is just now really coming into its own. And he and I meeting up and realizing that we potentiate one another. His ability to contact beings that are of other dimensions or even just non-local to where we are sitting on the surface of the earth, who may be in a spaceship above the earth, and in some cases that was actually true. He has been able to ascertain some of my own record that I can't remember, but as he accesses individuals that were involved with me before I incarnated here, I immediately recognized the energy, if you will, of the individuals, and even some of the terminology that I found to be quite personal to my own family history, and in that he channeled words that were familiar in my little group in Ellis land, but that he had never channeled before, and it was such a unique sort of a thing that it really tipped the scales as to whether or not I find this whole channeling thing to be entirely believable. And I was actually very inclined to believe it before I met him, but watching him channel different entities and seeing the effect that it has on him and the information that comes to me and the way that it impacts upon me, let's just say resonates with me in a way that it's so familiar that I can't deny it on the one hand. On the other hand, the information is so pristine to what I know about ancient human history. I have the advantage of having made mythology a priority in my learning from an early age. It was an interest my father had, and the whole ET connection, different books that he read, like Chariots of the Gods and Ancient Astronauts, Velikovsky, Johnny Keel, East of Eden, the list goes on and on and on. A lot of pictographic representation of highly technologically advanced humanoids interacting with humans who clearly worship them as gods and considered these beings to be superior to themselves, which was actually a mistake. It was really in the innocence of human evolution, being born here blind and not really realizing what your soul was before it incarnated here, put humans in a unique position of actually being told things that weren't true and having no memory of anything to compare it to. We really fell for the con, and have spent many eons dealing with the fallout of believing in a lie. And I think that's what people resonated with the most, was finding out what that backstory was. What happened to whom, when, and why, and what was done consequent to the so-called fall, and where are we now with regard to all of that. And so I'll just give you a brief history of the world, part one, and not go into all the depth that is there, but just kind of the cursory thumbnail sketch that I gave on Sunday's show. Essentially, what had happened was there was a child born on this planet that was blue in color, cyanotic, I guess a lot of people would have thought, blue for health reasons, maybe a hole in the heart or something like that, but all efforts to heal this child failed. And some people made the mistake of thinking that the color itself made the child special, an omen of the gods of some sort, and they treated the child as though it were special, greater than other individuals. And this is the classic blunder that's been made on other planets at different times in their own evolution. And the idea that something about the appearance of an individual or a specific gift that an individual has that is somehow more useful at some current stage of evolution, for whatever reason, the tendency to elevate some certain class above another is a total setup where inequality then becomes a poison, a virus, a toxin that will pollute an entire society and derail it from a natural evolution, had not the faulty presumption been made that something that is different about an individual makes them better than everybody else. That is never true. We're created by a singular entity, by a singular intention, with an energy that's the same in all of us. It is completely impossible that there be any greater than another. But as long as any of us believes that that's possible, then we subjugate ourselves into being enslaved by a lie that we told ourselves. Unfortunately for humans, that lie was reinforced by beings that knew that we had deluded ourselves into thinking that this blue baby was a god. And we had showered so much prestige and privilege on this individual that the guardians who were set around this world to watch us evolve, unmolested hopefully, became tempted by the love and adoration and gifts and prestige, if you will, celebrity showered on this individual just for being physically different. If you're looking at human beings and you're reptilian, it's not hard to imagine how the reptilians who were part of the contingent watching over this world were tempted to say, hey, we could go down there and be worshipped as gods. I mean, clearly we're very different looking, and they'll go for that. They'll fall for that, and we did. They came down here clearly more technologically advanced than we were, taught us a lot of things that we would have learned eventually, but they brought that here as their kind of evidence that they were greater than we were, and kind of reinforcing the illusion that we were less than they were. But in reality, we have vast metaphysical powers if only we are cognizant of them. And off and on throughout human history, there have been those human beings who did become cognizant of their own metaphysical powers. Unfortunately, the powers that be demonized those who were connected enough to the planet and connected enough to the cosmic frequencies in creation to actually manifest telekinetic powers, telepathic mind melding, alchemy, and different other kinds of gifts that are possible. And such people were branded as witches and hunted down and killed. In fact, it was the natural state for human beings on this planet to be somewhat magical, in fact, to be quite magical. But the priesthoods that had the energy masters and the priestesses around the world very many eons ago were hunted down by the Anunnaki, who wanted to enslave this world with the con that they were better than everybody else. And those amongst us who knew better were hunted down and killed and virtually eradicated. Unfortunately for them, it is the natural proclivity of human beings to evolve these abilities. And in the absence of a con to tell you that you can't do something, many humans are inclined to try the seemingly impossible and pull it off. And the more of us that try the seemingly impossible, people such as myself will actually dare ever more impossible things. Just through strength of thought and intention, and before you know it, you have a housewife from Nevada turned nurse turned business professional calling lightning down from the sky and doing other things that once upon a time would have gotten her branded a witch. And I've actually been encountered by somebody close to me who said that he was not sure whether I was a heretic or a witch, but he was not going to hang out to find out how this was going to turn out for me. And then moved off of that dime to eventually say that I was crazy for thinking that any of these things were possible, and he was not going to stand by and watch my demise. Fortunately for me, I'm not doing crazy alone. There's a lot of you who are resonating with the backstory of human history, who maybe even personally remember past lives trying to work covertly to recapture the human consciousness and awaken people to their own natural proclivities, and give people what they needed to rise up in consciousness, to rise up and out of the slavery, out from under what the powers that be, what the Anunnaki have set up on this world in terms of really dumbed down sciences and religions so full of lies and superstitions that they don't serve humanity in the slightest. They only serve to frighten. And it is through the propagation of fear, making eternal beings believe that their souls can be tormented forever or even extinguished if they don't obey, if they don't please these Anunnaki gods, what are termed in the Old Testament the Elohim, which translates pretty directly from the Hebrew in one of two ways, sky gods or powers that be. Those were used interchangeably, and now that you know kind of what happened in the exploitation of this world, you know why they were called that, and why it's appropriate even to this day that human beings pretty much brand the Bilderbergs and their minions as the powers that be, because they do have this world under control and have had it under control for a very long time. However, that control is falling apart. In fact, they're the ones that blew their own control. After spending eons of patiently devising a plan to enslave an entire world, their own greed and avarice got out of control, and they tanked the world economy, and they killed the golden goose, which is the American middle class. And now that they've turned beggars, turned us all into beggars, they have nobody to fleece anymore. And they have nothing really left themselves except to fight over what little bits and pieces of power are left here and there scattered around the planet. And to point fingers and blame, you know, whose cadre of minions failed, who didn't do their job, who was in charge of this and who was in charge of that, and how could this happen? And the infighting is going to be endless, and they have taken their eye off the ball. And in fact, they deflated the ball that they were trying to take from the rest of us, which was basically the wealth of the world. and just to inflate their own egos and say that they managed to enslave and con an entire planet of divine beings with almighty powers that could have at any time ended their own slavery, and how clever they must be that they fooled us all into thinking that we were something less than what we were. But reality is that we actually started that game, and we have to step up and own our part of setting ourselves up for our own con, even though ours was an innocent mistake and theirs was not. The fact of the matter is that we created class separation by elevating someone amongst ourselves above the others, and we can't do that. We have to always stand in the affirmation that we are equal. Each is as deserving of the abundance offered by this universe and this planet as every other individual. There can be nothing withstanding that other than intentions. The only thing that separates any of us is the quality of our intentions. And those of us who have equality in our hearts and who want abundance for everybody to be shared will be known by their own characters. And those who are out for themselves, who really don't care what happens to everybody else as long as they get theirs or even get more than everybody else, that somehow their ego needs that, they will take themselves out of the gene pool, as it were. They're not ready to ascend, and where we're going in the galactic north is not going to be very conducive to those of the lower vibrations. And by lower vibrations, I mean those who are channeling negative emotions, who are self-serving, who become energy sinks for the rest of us. They want and they're willing to take to get their wants met. And that is the lower vibrations. That is the lowest level of sentient existence. It is only by realizing that this is a circuit that we all form together, and by feeding the circuit, we are fed. And so when your intentions are outgoing and as concentrated on the well-being of everybody around you, as having some kind of responsibility, realizing that you got to take care of your own needs as well. The fact of the matter is if you stay completely other focused, your needs are taken care of automatically. It really is the reaping and sowing of karma that was taught in the Bible, that's taught in Eastern philosophies and other philosophies around this planet. I mean, there are certain rules of energy that are not mutable, and good intentions will be met with good rewards, good returns. It's just the way power flows. And I just wanted to kind of encapsulate that message that once upon a time, this world did have guardians of extraterrestrials, supposedly here to ensure that human evolution took place along a natural course, and those that were charged with our caretaking, really just all I needed to do was watch and make sure that we weren't invaded from without, and lo and behold, we were, and they actually joined the enemy, as it were. And there has been a thousands and thousands of years of concerted effort and wars fought between the Anunnaki and the Guardians that they defected from. We know those Guardians now as the Federation of Star Nations, or the Galactic Federation, etc., etc., etc. The fact of the matter is this planet is being heavily engaged by extraterrestrials, has always been under the tutelage of extraterrestrials who were committed to non-interference, but that a contingent of them did interfere has created a problem for the entire galaxy. The wrongs that were committed on this planet and the suffering that has been caused by the taking of resources through the exploitation of people actually ricocheted throughout the galaxy and actually caused other worlds to suddenly experience fear and doubt in one another and begin to treat one another as if they couldn't be trusted, and that lack of trust ended up setting up dynamics where worlds that had been at peace for eons and eons and eons of time all of a sudden were gearing up for war. And the man that is helping me now actually became an emissary, going around the different star systems around this galaxy and telling them that what was being channeled into their world was actually a wave of energy that Earth was ground zero for. And to get them to understand that their doubts and their fears really were not native to their own world, and nobody on their planet really deserved to be subjected to doubt and being treated as if they could not be trusted. That really you needed to let prior history determine current reality, and not let this wave of emotion that was bouncing out from Earth affect how they were going to continue evolving into the future. And that effort went on through the 90s, and a lot of different extraterrestrial nations now are involved in kind of watching the mop-up go, be expedited here on Earth. The Anunnaki were a species, as I understand it, from the Pleiadian system. I'm not sure that that's correct, but there seems to be some culpability for what happened with the Pleiadians, and they are stepping up to the plate and helping clean up the mess, and they are in fact the species that is most represented in the cleanup effort on Earth today. And I know that my fifth dimensional self is Pleiadian, and I rather suspect that I have been on this Earth from that fifth dimensional involvement more than once, but definitely this time I am able to talk to 3 crewmen that were close friends of mine through my friend Greg, and no doubt about it, they know me and I know them, that we are kindred spirits, and so they tell me that I was a heck of a warrior, and I believe it. I was born here a woman, but I've had a lot of brass, and I've always, since I was a small child, felt like that I was the schoolyard guardian, to protect everybody from the bullies. No matter how big and how old, what grade the bully was in, if weaker children were being picked on, then I was there to settle the score and make sure that it stopped. If I couldn't use intimidation, I would use brute force. And so I was a little girl that was often in trouble with the principal. But when I would tell them why, I had gotten into the altercation, typically I didn't get in trouble. The troublemaker did. And I was kind of born with that spirit, and I have always been a fierce competitor, mostly with myself, but kind of a lousy winner, if you will. I always thought it was the Irish side of me that would gloat over a good win, but I realize now my Pleiadian buddies are of the same ilk, and warriors and pride seem to go together. When you work hard for a win under dangerous circumstances, then I think we get the attitude that we kind of deserve to slap each other on the back and say good job, and have a beer and enjoy it. And that's kind of been the personality that I've brought here onto this planet. I believe that I came here for a fight, and I don't think that anybody could be more surprised than I am to wake up at 50 years old and find that the fight has taken care of itself. The Dark Ones have shot themselves in the foot. They screwed the pooch. They queered their own deal, and so we're in mop-up. So whatever fight it was I came down here for, I don't need to fight it. So I'm going to switch hats and move to a more nurturing side of myself. I did become a mother of 5 souls on this earth, and found a side of myself that wasn't really natural to who I was when I was born here. The not so tough side, that mother side, that nurturing side, that has never felt more complete than by holding a baby in my arms and looking into those eyes and connecting, and seeing that connection is two-way, that the baby is just as dependent on that connection as I am, in that love chain of energy, that exchange that completes us both. And I see now that what I want to do going forward is say the right thing to get the light to go on between all of you with one another and with me, that you hear just exactly what it is that you need to hear to justify everything that you believed or felt might be true, or the dreams that you've had, or the experiences, whether it's recalling past lives or having information channeled to you, or being born, or arriving at this time and this age, realizing that you have a burning desire to do something technological, or to do something about sustainability, about cleaning this world up, about making communities that are more symbiotic with one another and the earth that they exist in. And the thrust to bring humanity back in connection with nature is overwhelming. And technology is not a bad thing. It just needs to be a healthier thing. And that's what I've brought here to the color of ascension, is technology that I knew before I came here as my Pleiadian self. And part of me believes that it's somewhat of a gift offering, a peace offering, if you will, for what it was that my people participated in. And I don't know exactly what transpired. Perhaps it was the Pleiadians' job to keep the Anunnaki at bay, or to make sure that something like that didn't happen. I know that the history books tell us that only a third of the guardians that were appointed to watch over this world defected. I think the other 2/3 were just caught completely by surprise. That such a thing could even be thinkable was unthinkable. The whole thing, there was no contingency plan for it. This particular solar system had a timer on it. I mean, there was an appointed amount of time that we would spend in certain phases of evolution, and so anything that would ever go wrong would have an automatic timer set on it. It could only go so far before we would evolve upwards towards the ultimate realization of returning to who and what it was that we were before we incarnated here. However, there was a lot of suffering going on, and a lot of concerted efforts were made to come to Earth, and rescue operations to make reparations of what had gone so terribly wrong. But the vibrations were too low, and it took a long time for our star families to figure out how to even come here and survive, to do any kind of work whatsoever. And I think ultimately what had to happen was that human babies, fetuses, had to be made vessels for more ancient souls who could come in here, incarnate as humans, and live amongst them, and actually work covertly to kind of work human history towards the ultimate goal of human freedom and awareness of the fact that this is a slave planet, and in many ways kind of a dumping ground for not the best intentioned of entities. There's been a lot of protection provided for the riffraff, if you will. And humans have been caught in the middle, in the fray, and have been told such. I mean, long ago we were told that the war that was being fought here was between principalities and powers that were beyond our recognition. We just really didn't notice that there were wars being fought here on Earth that had nothing to do with human relations. It had everything to do with entities that were more advanced or more in touch with their own advancedness, because humans have every capacity for telepathic communication, telekinetic manipulation, mind over matter control, to be able to work the elements. We don't all acquire those abilities at the same rate of speed. We will not all evolve at the same time. I just know that ultimately we came from the same thing and we're returning to the same thing. And whatever pace each and every one of us does that will be the pace that's right for ourselves. But I do know that that pace is being stepped up. Humans learn by example, and as more of us appear on the world scene who are able to do miraculous things, more of you will do miraculous things in like kind. And that's why I am very public with what I'm doing right now. I know that I am an example to others, and I also can serve to validate people who have been told that they're crazy or defective, or being shunned by their families, kicked out of their jobs for believing so-called crazy things like having extraterrestrial encounters or astral planing and having entire alternate lives when other people are sleeping. In fact, when their own physical bodies are sleeping, going off and fighting wars in other worlds or being emissaries somewhere else. I mean, it all seems impossibly crazy, but the fact of the matter is that reality is crazy compared to the craziness that we've been living in. And when I say the craziness we've been living in, is that we've believed that we're something less than we really are. So what's more insane? Believing a lie and living as if it's true, or stepping into what's true and realizing you had lived a lie? The fact of the matter is that we are incredibly powerful beings with consciousness, that with the technological skill to have created magnetic bubbles within magnetic bubbles within magnetic bubbles. We call them magnetospheres. The Earth has its, and the Sun has its, and other star systems, and these actually serve to create the passage of time at a scale that's slow enough to actually savor experience that would not otherwise be possible. Human experience is kind of sandwiched in between cosmological experience and atomic experience, and at those scales things are whipping along pretty fast. But through the use of magnetic bubbles, you can actually slow things down, and that's kind of where we're at. We're in the middle between realities above and below, and so the human drama actually plays out what is happening at the atomic scale and the cosmological scale. It is necessary to accept and understand that all matter has awareness, and much of it has sentient awareness, because wherever there are two, then there is a self-reference that affirms that I am and you are, and therefore we are. And so the I am is everything, including ourselves. All things are God. And it was only the believing that there could be less than perfection that allowed the experience of imperfection to actually manifest in and around us. And as soon as we change our thinking, that which manifests in and around us will change. And that's where we're at. We're at that period of grand awakening where we accept that we are something quite unlike what we were told, and what we told ourselves, and then had that mistake reinforced. And parent has passed that superstition to child, and generation after generation has been poisoned with the idea that we are imperfect, that we are less than, and that there are others that are greater than we, to whom we are at the mercy of, and none of that is true. None of that is true. And as soon as we free ourselves from the lie, we free ourselves to be our full potential. And that is really the point of ascension, is we cross that line in space where the lower energies can no longer manifest and be supported. And we free ourselves from any possibility of the belief in a lie, because we'll see the world and ourselves as they truly are, as we truly are. And we are probably very ill prepared for the grandeur of what that really is, but I think we are all prepared to embrace equality. At least the humans who are unmolested by the Dark Ones are. The sense of community between human beings has always been a precious thing, and we have always stayed true to our compassionate selves, reaching out to those of us who are most harmed by whatever undeserved fate that befalls us, by weather or war or what have you. And that has been the divine spark that has remained ever alive in us and has kept us true to our ultimate selves, and is the truth of what really brings us to this point where we are ready to ascend. Those of us who have stayed in heart, who have made love and compassion the central tenet of their being, those people are ready for the truth. They have the higher vibrations already anchored within their soul. And really it is the soul self that is an energetic part of our being that is eternal. That soul self is energetic, and it does have a frequency, it does have a vibrational pattern, and negative emotions dampen your frequency and bring you into the lower vibrations and keep you from being ready for ascension. It doesn't mean you'll be destroyed, it just means you'll need more time to get used to thinking in a different way, to manifesting positive expectations, to living within a paradigm where the expectation that things will always work out well. In fact, believing in your own ability to make things work out whichever way they're going to work out. Nobody has greater power than we do when it comes to making things manifest in our world around ourselves. There's no such thing as bad luck. There is only the failure to expect the best. So we really are at a crossroads of taking responsibility for what's in our lives and realizing that that which we have is that which we expect to have. And we will never have more or less than what we believe in. So really it's just about changing our attitudes, our expectations, and really solidifying our sense of community, and not getting caught up in the lie that there's less than and greater than. There's the deserving and the less deserving, that there should be any kind of separation of class by color, by beauty, by wealth, by talent, by whatever means. We have to stop categorizing ourselves as less than and greater than. As soon as we stop doing that, then we rejoin the unity consciousness that we once had long, long ago. As we rejoin it this time, though, we bring with ourselves this very rich dichotomy of individuality that will always be our own, and the flavor that we bring to the collective. And it is the collective that we left once upon a time to incarnate here, to experience a slowed pace, to savor experience in slow motion, and enjoy a golden period where the pace is slow enough to taste life. We lost that long ago, and we're going pretty fast right now. But we're returning to that. The technology, antimatter physics, which is really just acoustical physics, understanding the magnetic field as an acoustical wave in the aether, the kinds of technologies that work with nature will actually bring a period of ease to the human condition that is probably even greater than the last golden age, at least as great. The difference between then and now is that we will know who and what we are and not be separated from the majesty and the might and the miraculous things that we can do. Until we can do with our minds what we can do with technology, we will utilize the technology for the benefit of those who are still evolving and growing. But I can assure all of you that in just a few short years, this planet will be anything but what it appears to be today. And that seems to be a message that resonates with everybody. They feel it. And I just hope that in listening to my messages that people realize not to fear it. This has not taken anybody by surprise. It was part of a grand plan. Every contingency has been thought of, and we will make it through ascension in a safe and honoring way. And we needn't fear not even the dark ones. They are their own problem. They really are. It was a problem for us that we believed their shenanigans, but really we need to regard them as the schoolyard bullies that they are. They took advantage of us in a very innocent and blinded state, and shame on them. That's their karma they'll have to deal with and work out. The rest of us are free to go. This Earth is done being a prison planet. She has served above and beyond the pale, at her own detriment, to her own ley lines and meridians. All of that is in a state of repair through different mechanisms, and I know that those of us who are able will help the rest of you become or evolve unity consciousness. Kind of think of those of us who are really energy sensitive as being some kind of a radio tower for the rest of you to bounce your signals off of until you can feel your own frequencies and the frequencies of those around you, and connect in your own right. But just know that your future is all about energy, and connecting to energy. That your feelings are energy, your spirit, eternal self, your feeling self is energy, and that reality is not going to change. Your physical reality is going to change radically, as is life on this planet, even the mixture of our atmosphere. Earth is getting ready to give birth to an enormous amount of new life forms. It's already well underway, and it's been a matter of news on MSN just a week ago. I've been watching it for over a year and have some clips on my YouTube channel. I've just been so concentrated on other things I haven't really put a lot of that in there. But if you Google, strange new creatures, or, new categories of species, or however you want to do it, you will just come up with volumes and volumes and volumes of very strange looking new creatures. It's almost as if we're kind of re-entering a Jurassic / Precambrian sort of era that is truly looking like it's going to be tropical, looking at the creatures that are just appearing on the world scene, and a lot of extinct creatures that are reappearing on the world scene as well. This is the life on this planet is about to become very, very abundant. We can say goodbye to deserts and lack of food supplies and things of that nature. Things are about to get really, really good. I know there's a lot of panic out there about cosmologically what's going on and what that might mean. Just know that contingency plans are in place, and that things are going to work out exactly as planned, and you needn't worry about anything. Just trust the process and be ready for anything, because trust me, the unexpected is about to become the ordinary. Take care.